You know
You're
what
going.
mom brain is, right?
I do. I still have it.
Uh,
Not as
uh,
bad as it used to be, but it's still there. Now it
yeah.
might also just be perimenopause brain. Like I don't know.
Well, I mean, how old are you now? You're 40.
42.
Oof. I mean, not
Yeah.
oof at how old you are. Cause honestly, like we're still how long has it been that we've been working together? 10
11
years?
years.
11 years. So yeah, you're still like in your 20s and I'm
Yeah.
still in my 20s.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah. But we've had kids. And
Yeah.
you have a lot of kids.
A lot of kids.
um, but so how this works, oh well, we were talking about mom brain and now
Yeah.
perimenopause brain. I just think that it's like the ultimate manager brain. Like
It
you
is.
don't have an
It is.
assistant,
Mhm. It's just
so
having a lot going on and having to manage where everybody is all the time. Yeah.
yeah. All right. So welcome back to the Progressive Rehab and Strength podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rori Alter, head clinical coach here at Progressive Rehab and Strength with probably my second longest client ever, which has been really freaking cool. I think that I started PRS in 2014. Maybe, well, yeah, you and I have been working together for 11 years. It's 2025.
Mhm.
Um, nah, I don't think I have the name PRS, but I started working like
Yes.
outside of working for someone else in 2014. And we have been working together since then. We don't have to get into the details of how
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
we
It's been a
won't
long
get into the details of that. But anyway, so Anna Marie and I have been on a journey together for a very, very long time. You are extremely inspirational to me in many, many ways. And I wanted to bring you on the podcast because you have inspired me. I mean, listen, I wish I could live up to, like, how awesome you are. Like, every day I have 2 clients who are both moms, you and Melissa, she's been on here. She's been on our podcast. You guys just, like, put your blinders on. You even if you, like I say you never miss training in the sense that there's no long gaps in training.
Right.
Like, maybe you have like, you got in a car accident.
Yeah.
And I really don't even think you missed much training after the car
I
accident,
probably should have, but I didn't. I
right?
got in a car accident on a Wednesday of that week, and I didn't train the rest of that week, and then I
Right,
trained the following Monday.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, I mean,
To
I
be fair,
think
I didn't break anything, so there wasn't like
she
I
didn't
was
break anything.
yeah,
It
I
was
wasn't
more of
lifting on broken limbs. I had a
right,
concussion,
right,
and I had like a stitches over my eye and a big bruise, and
right.
that
Were there some repercussions from that? Yeah, but we modify everything and like we've
yeah,
worked through all of it. And like you, and I mean, listen, you had a baby. We'll talk about that. You had a
yeah.
baby,
Mhm.
and you've got 5 kids,
Mhm.
a set of twins in there.
Yep. Yep.
So you've really never had like a break in training. So that's what I mean like when I say when you never miss
Yeah.
training. So
Right.
perhaps you didn't do the training on the day that you thought you were going to do the training.
Yeah.
Um but it got done and it got done in some capacity
Mhm.
in at some time and we kept going. Now I can't say the same for myself. And that's what I mean when I say that you're inspirational is because like you've just been able to get your feet back under you
Yeah.
even at the smallest blip or largest blip so
Yeah.
that again training is continuous. It's done probably within a week. I think
Yep.
probably the longest, it might take to get done for you is a week within when it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And that is that's a stretch. A week is a stretch, like you would
Yeah.
get it done.
Usually
Um,
within a few days.
yeah.
Yeah.
So to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are as a lifter and how you got into strength training and what role it plays in your life?
Okay, so I'm a lifter. I compete. Well, sometimes I still compete. I probably once a year I compete, but
Mhm.
um, I mostly just lift as an example for my clients. I feel like it's unfair to ask my clients to do something that I won't do myself. But as a lifter, I'm just a consistent lifter, somebody who makes it a priority in my life. Um, Getting into strength training, I started with CrossFit. And because I was fascinated by how those athletes looked, and I'd spent at that point 14 years training in a gym on a regular basis, just like going to the gym, doing broy stuff, machines, lat pull downs, goblet squats,
Mhm.
things to make my thighs smaller, like all that stuff. And I didn't really look like I trained. I'd gotten leaner, but I didn't look super muscular or like I worked out. And for me, I was like, all this work I've put into my body and I just look smaller, cool, but I want to look strong. And so
Mhm.
after I had the twins, which was 2013, um, I had gone back to the gym, and weirdly, my body wasn't responding like it normally does to training. And so I decided to go to a CrossFit gym, and they had a strength program where we would do a lift and then we would do the Metcon. And I had 4 or 5 coaches at the gym be like, "You need to start lifting. You're built for lifting. You will be a great lifter." And I think that most of them were talking about Olympic lifting because that's what
Mhm.
part of CrossFit.
Mhm.
But, there was a woman in the gym who never did CrossFit, who squatted 300 something pounds and just was getting leaner and leaner and leaner, and I was like, "What is she doing?" And so I got to know her, um, was doing starting strength. And so she ran a free class and I took her free class. And even though I did it wrong, even though I was still doing CrossFit 5 days a week and doing starting strength 3 days a week, I still put 45 pounds on my back squat in 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And
The
I think I
novice
almost,
effect.
right. But that's like, that's still even with doing all the CrossFit too. And then I think I only put 25 on my deadlift, but I will say this, the deadlift that I had done as a PR before I took that class, I had injured my back so badly I didn't go back to class for 2 weeks because I had
Mhm.
just ripped it off the ground. No, I didn't care about what the consequences were. So when I did that class and ended up PRing in that class, it was a much more controlled deadlift.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but that's how I got started into strength training, and I was bored at first because
Mhm.
going from CrossFit where everything changes day to day and it's
Right.
fun and it's exciting and it was like being on a team again. um, I was bored with it, but I was really happy with the results.
Mhm.
And then I was able to do a body weight chin up, and I was able to, you know, bring my belt down a couple of notches. And there were things that I had goals to achieve, and those things that was getting that for me with a whole lot less work. And having 4 kids at that point, the twins were a year at that point. Um, it just like that time is invaluable.
Mhm.
So that saving of time meant a lot to me, and so I just stuck with it. And I think probably 8 or 9 months in, I finally read the blue book, and I decided that I wanted to become a coach.
Mm.
Didn't pass the first time I tried, obviously.
Neither did I.
Right.
Well, don't
Well,
say
it
obviously,
well,
'cause
because well, back in the day, there was no pipeline, there was no mentorship. There was
Right.
just like you train, you read the book, maybe you have a coach. I was lucky enough to have a coach. Um, and then I coached a couple people in the gym through a couple of meets and things, but I just did not have the experience that would warrant passing. You know what I mean? But I did get really good feedback. They said I have a good eye that I just needed to spend more time doing. So as soon as I got back from that seminar, which was in Brooklyn in 2015, which
Which
was
was
super
where
fun,
we officially met in person.
officially met. I didn't know you were my coach at the time, but officially met.
We don't have to talk about that.
Right. But but yeah, I officially met you there.
Which
And
I
what
feel
I
like is cool, like, probably, like, the last couple of years, we've gotten to see each other in person at least once a year, which is,
yeah,
like, so fun. I honestly, like, I just, like, can't wait to see you every I'm like, "I have to go to the seminar that she goes to. I have to go to" like, I have to plan it so that I go with Anna Marie.
really fun. And it is nice because remote coaching means that you don't necessarily have like an in-person relationship with
Mhm.
somebody, um so many years, so much time, like
Mhm.
there's like emails and all that stuff, so
Yeah.
there's interaction, which is awesome. But again, seeing you in person is always really fun. And I think it was 2019 where it was the first meet I ever had you actually there with me, which is the one that we did
Oh,
in.
yeah. That was my last meet before getting pregnant.
Yes, I remember.
Yes. Yes. And you were
So,
dealing with a shoulder injury then.
yep.
Um, I mean, listen, even with the shoulder injury, and we talk about this all the time on the podcast. Even though we're physical therapists and we're strength coaches, barbell coaches, it's not that doesn't mean there's no injuries.
Oh yeah,
Injuries are gonna happen, and it's how we manage them, how
mhm,
we come out of them, how we work through them and identify where they come from
right.
and plan for the future that gets us through those things. So, yeah, even with injuries, you never stop training. But
No,
that
and
was so fun.
it was
Ah,
it was really fun. So yeah, so I didn't pass the first time, but I came home from that. I had just moved to Washington State from like my hometown.
oh my
Like,
god, I forgot all about the times you move.
yeah,
Anna
I moved
Marie
a lot.
has 5 kid we're at 5 kids now, right? 5
Yeah,
kids, no more.
no
Yeah, we're
more.
done? Okay.
No more done.
Um, and you've moved you lived in California, then Washington,
We moved
then
in Washington 3 times,
okay, 3 times
and
moved
then
in and now you're in Montana.
yeah,
Am I right? Yeah, right.
right.
I have
Yeah.
to remind myself where you're at.
It's a
Um,
lot. It's a lot of moving, and I hate moving,
it
so
is a lot, and hopefully you're staying put.
oh, yeah.
You
We
bought
bought
you
our
bought a
house.
house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we finally
so,
bought a house, so we're not
um,
moving.
yeah, so we're done moving and we're done with
You're gonna
kids.
bury me on this property like it's
That's what
I'm
John
never
says.
leaving. Yeah. Like, I'm never leaving, just I hate moving, it's
But again, like, that's and I think your car accident was right around when you had moved into the house too. So,
we were
and
moving.
again, like you have a home gym. You don't have a gym membership. And this is something that even with moving so many times, you've always planned it so that your gyms get set up and you get your last day training in and your next day training in.
Mhm.
Um at some point within a reasonable time frame, you
Yeah,
moved and you were doing work on the house and got in the car accident and um got your gym set up and still got to work. So beyond training though, tell us about yourself as a mom. How many kids we talked about that. You've got 5
yes.
kids.
Okay.
What are their age ranges? And also you homeschool them. So
Yes.
I mean, this is if I'm not building the case for, like, how amazing you are, I mean, here we are with 5
Oh,
kids
yes.
and we're adding in homeschooling, and she still doesn't miss training. So, tell us a little bit about your kids, the age range, you as a mom, and how homeschooling plays into all that.
Okay. So my oldest is 16, and then I have a 14-year-old, 12-year-old twins, and my youngest is 7.
Ah.
And yeah, it's a lot. And, but I'm from a family of 9, so 5 is just very manageable. And when my husband and I met, we agreed 3 to 5 kids. Like, that was like it's like, no more than 5, no less than 3. He's from a family of 3, and I was like, 2 is just not enough because
Mhm.
just 2. So I'm from a huge being from a big family, just the thought of having, like, 1 sibling, like,
Right.
what? 1 sibling? Like, that's just not enough,
You
you know?
need someone to
Anyway,
side with you when you're mad at the
correct.
other one.
Yes, and yeah, yeah, just thinking long term, like, when I'm gone, they need somebody, they need people,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, 16 to 7 is the age range, and we've been homeschooling from the very beginning. I was homeschooled for a good portion of my growing up. My mom was a little bit more of an unschooler, which just means that it's very unstructured, which
Mhm.
my personality didn't quite work very well. So I did have the privilege and the opportunity to go to a private school for a little while. Some generous person in our church actually paid for me to go,
Wow.
and I really liked that. And it was a small little school where I had a bunch of friends, and that kind of caught me up in places that I was lacking. And then I just kind of went from there. Math was my hardest subject, and I actually was super proud of myself when I finally, like, conquered it, figured it out, and then I became a math tutor because I was like, "Listen, I'm not the only person that struggles with this."
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and so when it comes to homeschooling our kids, it was one of my non-negotiables when I met my husband, and I was like, "We're gonna homeschool our kids." And he was like, "Okay." And, I have enough of an educational background. I've been a coach or a teacher pretty much my entire life. Taught swimming lessons. I was a tutor. I was a soccer coach.
Mhm.
Um, so that's more my personality, like teaching someone how to do something,
Right.
just kind of ingrained. And teaching my kids, I enjoy it. I get to spend time with my kids. When my kids have a breakthrough, I'm directly involved in that
Mhm.
breakthrough. I'm part of that
Mhm.
breakthrough. Um, and I just took it a kid at a time, and I took it a day at a time. And my oldest kid now is a junior in high school, but he is in Montana and Washington. They have what's called Running Start, where they can take classes at the local community college and fulfill high school and associate's degree credits at the same time.
Mhm.
So he's getting his associate's degree at the same time he's finishing his high school. So that's the plan that we have for all of the kids.
Mhm.
That by the time they hit junior year, they'll be at the community college fulfilling both requirements at the same time. So that when they're 18, 18 and a half, they'll have finished their degree, their associates, whichever it's art or science.
Mhm.
And then they can decide from there where they want to go. And they'll only have 2 to 3 more years of school to go for whatever it is, unless they have like a specialty that takes longer.
Right.
Um, and I think it's mostly time. The reason we homeschool is time with our kids, time with them developing who they are, and then time when they're finished with school so that they can pick something, not based on what they want to do when they're 10, but like they can try things out and they have
Right.
that time because they've already done that general education, which is the basic 2 years of any degree.
Mhm.
So that's our plan. And so far is working with our oldest. Our 14-year-old is a freshman, so she has another year of homeschooling, but we're also part of a co-op, and that is super helpful. I think any homeschool parent or any parent will tell you having more than just yourself,
Right.
having a village is helpful. And so our co-op is not super strict, but it takes a little bit off of my plate, takes a little bit off the other parents' plates. I teach world geography this year for the high school
Mhm.
students. Last year, I taught health and nutrition, economics, government, and personal finance. And the year before that, I taught biology. Last year
Cool.
was really hard. I will never do that again. Too
Yeah, it
many
sounds
classes.
like it was a lot.
It was a lot. And so that's one of the reasons why we actually switched co-ops because I needed to do less.
Well, I also feel like now that I know that, because
Yeah,
we don't have these conversations, you know.
right,
I mean, we have you tell me what you need, you
right.
tell me where you're struggling, but we don't dive into to
Why
that
or
so
what's going on.
deeply.
Yeah,
Um, but I think it was probably last year where we switched from a 4-day training
yep,
program to a 3-day training program, and that, like, makes total sense. You had I mean, I must have known at the time that you had a
right.
shit ton on your plate. I mean, you
Yes.
always have a shit ton on your plate, but that's, like, just, like, mega overload for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot. And our homeschooling, like people I think about homeschooling in the same capacity they think about traditional schooling, which is school is from like 7:30 to like 3:30.
Right.
But that's because you have to go from class to class, you have these breaks in between classes, you have this many teachers and this many you have to have this many butts in the seats, this many hours in the classroom. When you're a homeschool parent, your classroom's in your house. We have an extensive library. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. And I use a curriculum that is very regimented. So it's just like it's a big binder with 36 weeks, and every week we just check the things off, go through, like do the assessments. There's
Mhm.
tests in multiple subjects, and then we move on. And it takes 2 to 3 hours a day for all the kids to finish their schoolwork. So it's like 9 to noon. So then
Yeah.
they have tons of time in their day, and I have time in my day to do my remote coaching reviews, to get my training in, to go to jujitsu, to do whatever else I need to do. So yes, I would probably have more technical time if my kids were in regular school
Mhm.
because they'd be at school all day.
Mhm.
But the problem is when they come home, they have homework, and I have to get them to school and pick them up from school. And some days there's early outs and all these things. And for me, it's just more consistent if they're at home.
You're, like,
And then
building the
they,
argument for homeschooling. "Hey, John, if you're listening." No, just kidding, I can't do I just it's not
well,
it's
you
not
have
something
a
I'm
lot on
interested.
your plate. I will say, yes, I run a business and it's just me. I'm the only person in my business. I'm the only coach in my business. I'm the only person that does anything in my business. I don't have to run a business with multiple people involved with it. That is a whole different level. So,
Right, well, so that's kind of where I wanted to go next. On top of everything you do, you also coach barbell trainees,
yeah,
whether they're power lifters or just general barbell strength trainees, both in person and remotely. And I don't think your in person is like it's not consistent. I feel like maybe you do more like group strength coach, kind of like 8-week programs or whatever.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Correct
I
me if
do
I'm
both.
wrong. Okay,
I do
yeah.
both.
So share more about your work and what it looks like for you.
So I coach remotely. I have a good chunk of my clients are remote clients, which is actually really fun. I have clients like East Coast to West Coast and all in between. And then for a little while there, I had clients in like Sweden, Norway, um, where else? Italy. That was fun. That was
Mhm.
fun. But it is a little hard because of the time
Right.
difference.
Right.
You have 24 hours or 24 hours to
Right.
respond back to your client, but
Right.
still. Um, but yeah, I remote coach and then which is great because that's what allowed me to move from Washington to
Right.
Montana
Right.
without like losing revenue. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean? Income. So but I have in person. So I have one, two, five clients that come to my house regularly during the week. Most of them only come once.
Okay.
And then they get remote coaching for the rest of the week. So it's a little bit of a hybrid
Mhm.
program. So they're I see them once a week and then they get programming for the other two training days or three training days that they do. Um, and then I have one client who just trains with actually two clients who just train with me. They don't do anything else. They just come and train with me twice a week. And
Mhm.
then they don't do anything else besides that. Lifting wise, they'll do jujitsu or hike or whatever it is that they do. And then I have my strength class that I run at our jujitsu gym that is in 8-week blocks. And I do 4 blocks a year. I used to do more, but
Mhm.
again, I have decided in my old age that I want more time.
Right.
So I used to run 5 to 6 8-week blocks, which means I had zero breaks. So I run 8-week blocks now. So the first part of the year, they're two kind of back to back, and then I have a month off, and then I have one
Mhm.
in the summer, and then I have a month off, and I have one in the fall, and then I take all of November and December off so that there's no because though when I was running the regular blocks, those were the months that people wouldn't show up.
Right. Because of the
Like half the
holidays. Yeah.
right. It makes sense. I don't really want to be there either. I want to be with
Right.
my family or
Right.
traveling or whatever. And so I just made that executive decision. And sometimes she's going to be 76 tomorrow. I have a 75-year-old client and her son is a starting strength coach also. And he's like, 2 months off? And I'm like, yeah, it's not my responsibility to make sure you guys keep training.
Right.
You're my in-person strength class clients. Like you got to decide to do that on your
Right.
own. And so some of them have done that on their own. And a lot of the ladies that I teach, and it's all ladies, which is funny because it's not a ladies only strength class. But I don't know how many gentlemen I've had be like, "Yeah, I should take your class," and then they never come. And I've got this consistent group of ladies, 5 to 6 ladies that comes every single block, and they just, like,
Right.
pays in advance. They're like, "I'm coming
Yeah.
back." And, so anyway, the ladies that come through, they just like, some of them will go in and train because they have memberships. They have a membership at the
Mhm.
gym. They either do
Mhm.
jujitsu or they do yoga or whatever else. And so they'll still use the gym space when I'm
Mhm.
not running the class.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I run it in 8-week blocks, and I've been actually doing that for a long time. I did that in Washington. I did that in a gym that we were involved in. I did that in my garage
Yeah.
in Tacoma because I had a
Mhm.
bigger garage. And I don't do it here because it's a little farther out. Like in Tacoma, I was in a neighborhood and I
Uh-huh.
had people that like like they did like a jog from their house to my house and then
Right,
they would
right.
so it's not the same out here, um but having that it's actually nice having that kind of it's at the gym. So I
Right.
don't like it, it's not here. There's more of a separation of work.
Yes, yes. I think that's definitely for people who, like, work from home. That
Yeah.
separation is
Yeah.
you miss it. It's almost like you need to kind of build it into your schedule somehow. Like, John this morning, John was like, "I'll get the kids." I'm like, "No, I will get the kids today at the end of the day because I just need to get out," you know?
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so you have a lot of stuff on your plate. I think that that would be probably more than I could I mean, listen, I think you've adapted.
I
Um,
have.
and I think this is
This
something
didn't
that
come all at once. It
right,
came
exactly. This
yeah.
is something we talked about on the podcast with John is that it's just like ingrained in you to do these things.
Mhm.
So you just do them, like
Yeah.
you've been managing a large family for 16 years, well, 14 years, because that's when the
Right.
second child came.
Right.
And then really when the twins came, I think
Yes.
that was like a
That
huge
was a big
this
change.
and they're identical. So, right?
They're not, but
They're
everyone thinks
not.
No.
Oh, wow. Do you have twins in your family?
Yes, but we didn't know we had twins in our like we didn't think about it until I found out I was 20 weeks when I found out I was having twins.
Oh.
Because I was like, gosh, why aren't my clothes? Because normally I can wear my regular clothes for a while. And
Yeah.
then what's happening? So I was a midwife student at the time. So I laid down and I measured my belly and you're when you're a midwife student, you know, like your parameters and it's 3 centimeters less or 3 centimeters more than your weeks. And I was 19 weeks and 30 centimeters. And I was like,
Oh.
oh my gosh. So what my brain as being a like a quasi medical student was like, I have a hydrocephalus baby. Like there's something wrong with me. So
No,
then I went and I
that
had
must have been terrible.
it was terrifying.
Oh
And I went
my god.
and had an ultrasound and then I was like, oh, it's just two. Okay.
Oh,
Two.
just 2.
Two.
Uh,
Okay.
well, um, so you have, like, a ton of responsibilities on your plate, and
Mhm.
I think that there are so many people listening to this episode that say like, "Oh yeah, that's well, maybe not the." I think that the homeschooling is probably puts you in the,
Right.
but that's kind of like your full time job,
Mhm. Yeah.
or your full time job consists of homeschooling your children, seeing your clients in person, and working with them remotely, and
Yeah.
then on top of that, you are a parent and a wife and a friend and a homekeeper. So, with so many responsibilities on your plate, what does a typical day or week look like for you outside of training?
Okay. So every day is packed to the gills. The only day that isn't like that is Saturdays. That's the only day that my alarm does not go off. I don't have an alarm that goes off on Saturday mornings, and sometimes I'll even stay in bed till like 10
Wow.
because I don't have to get up. But my busiest days are the days that I have a co-op and I also teach my strength classes. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are my busiest days during the week. Wednesdays are busy too because I have a morning client and normally my clients are in the afternoon. But it doesn't feel as stressful as Tuesdays because I don't have to be anywhere between that morning client
Mhm.
and like jujitsu. So I train jujitsu twice a week, sometimes 3 if I'm being ambitious. It's still snow season up here in Montana, so we took up snowboarding this year. So I've gone snowboarding once a week every week since the beginning of January,
Mhm.
which is fun. Also, the fact that I can do that at 42, pick it back up after not having done it since I was like 18, and I didn't do it well when I was 18, and not be completely broken down is a huge testament to being strong.
Yep.
Like, my knees, like, I'll be sore that day, but I am not, like, devastatingly sore the next day or the day after, and that's a huge thing because you know when you start something new and physical, you're sore, and I
Mhm.
my first day of snowboarding, I was sore the second day, but I was not debilitatingly sore, which you would expect from something like that, especially
Mhm.
falling as much as you do when you start. So jujitsu, snowboarding, um I'm the youth group leader at our church. So we have youth group on Thursday nights with our kids, which 2 of my kids are in, which is really fun. So I get to do that with my kids. Um, and then Saturdays are my lazy day. And then Sundays we have church. Sunday is usually a mellow day too, because we have church and then it's a family day. So we tend to
Mhm.
spend time as a family and we'll have taco Sundays, not taco Tuesdays, because we have time to make tacos on
Right.
Sundays. Um,
How about we'll just call it taco time?
taco time. But the thing is, also part of that is I have um my husband and I have been together 21 and a half years, been married 18 in May.
Mhm.
I have a very, very helpful and involved partner.
Mhm.
So I could not do what I do if my husband
Mhm.
didn't cook, clean, help with school. He also owns his own business and works from home. Um, Gets the kids to jujitsu when I have afternoon clients. This is not something I could do without him. So
Right.
like if I was a single parent, something would have to give. There, I probably wouldn't do jujitsu or go snowboarding or do any of that extra stuff. I would just train and take care of the kids. But
Mhm.
because I have my partner for, better or worse for all the things that we've been through, we are relatively equal when it comes to the house duties. So
Mhm.
I'm not the only one cleaning, the only one cooking, the only one doing
Right.
that stuff. So um, that's he's a huge part of how I make any of this work is he does not begrudge me my training time. He's never
Mhm.
like, "Why are you going to the gym to train?" Like, it's
Right.
never like that. He's always like, "Yeah, go get your training in." Every once in a while, he'll be like, "You're going in right now?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, I gotta get it done." And then go in, but that's the beauty of having a home gym is that I can go in my pajamas, which you've seen, and
Oh,
my
yeah.
snow boots and
I
my
think
hoodie.
yes, oh my god. I think I commented on one of your deadlifts, like, either I can't remember if it, like, looked great or it looked horrible because you were wearing your snow boots, and I was like, "I think that the heel is elevated in your snow boots,"
Yeah,
or, like, they're just so much they're thick, and, like, I was like, "You're
yeah.
just not in a great position here," or "You're in a good position," I can't remember, but and
Can't remember
even,
what
like,
it's called,
last
but
week, I was looking at your I was doing your check-in on Monday, and I'm like, "Oh,
yes.
yeah, she's in her pajamas this week."
Yeah,
So talk to us just a little bit about how okay, so you do get your training in.
yeah.
And I'll see in your check-in sometimes that you're like, "Oh, got day 3 in, this on this day and this on the next day or whatever." And
Mhm.
and just as like a side note on what your program looks like, it used to be 4 days a week.
Yeah,
We
it was for a long time, 4
For a
days.
really long time,
Yeah,
years, it was 4 days
yeah,
a week.
yeah.
And then we consolidated to 3.
Mhm.
And now I think that there's probably been more weeks where you've been like, "Oh, I had to get it done on like an extra day or whatever,"
Yeah,
which is fine, and I think
yeah,
that that's a mindset, and you can talk about the mindset. I
yeah,
think that's a mindset that people have a difficulty accepting
yeah.
or adopting into their training, is that like, this is
Yes.
how it is written, this is how it
Mhm.
gets done. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about how you fit your training into all of this.
Okay, so I do my best because I have a 3-day schedule. Day one is volume squats, volume bench, and then an accessory. So what I do with that day is I split it over 2 days. So I'll get because I usually go get adjusted at the chiropractor on Mondays, got school, and then I have a client in the evening. So I will do my squats and my bench because it's higher volume and I can get that done in a shorter period of time. Then I'll go get adjusted because I don't like getting adjusted at or
Mhm.
before I have to lift. So
Mhm.
I'll get my lifts in and then I'll take the accessory from that day and I'll do it before my conditioning on Tuesday. And then Wednesdays, which is day 2 for me, I tend to get it all done in the day, but I get it done in pieces. So when we're
Mhm.
done in here, I'll go deadlift because I have jujitsu and I'm not going to deadlift after jujitsu. And then I'll press and I'll get my planks in, which are what I do on Wednesdays, after when I get home.
All right, so
And
I have a personal question for
sure,
me.
sure.
I've always wondered this.
Okay.
A barrier that I face
Mhm.
is the shower.
Okay.
And, like, not being clean. Maybe
Okay.
that's just a thing that I have. I don't know. I'm not judging you. I'm
Sure.
actually, like, legitimately curious so that maybe that's not even a thing for you. Maybe, like, that's not a problem. Tell me how you balance from, like, my hair is usually grow like, I don't know, like, I just wanna, like
Eh,
my day kinda needs to start with a shower and have to know when my shower is gonna be. I
yeah.
don't like being sweaty you know, so
No, yeah.
tell us about that because I can't be the only one who feels this way.
Okay, well, I don't get sweaty when I do my deadlifts unless it's summertime. So we live
Okay.
in Montana, it's cold. Even with the
Right.
heater in my garage, like I don't tend like it's gonna be 65 today. So I might get sweaty today, but probably not deadlifting, maybe pressing.
Mhm.
Um, but yes, the shower is a thing. If I get sweaty, I definitely have to go shower. I'll go sweaty to the chiropractor. Sorry, Josh, my chiropractor. Um, but I'll and that's the day that I'll get sweaty is the bench and the squat because it's so
Right.
much
Right.
volume. Um, but breaking up my workout actually my training day actually means I don't get very sweaty when I do the things
Right.
unless it's hot. And if it's
Right.
hot, I have a fan blowing on me and then as soon as I'm done I'm going in and showering. Yes, absolutely. I don't really be crusty, I don't want to be salty, I don't want to be any of those things. So if I get super sweaty deadlifting, I'm going to go get sweaty at jujitsu. So
Right.
I'm not usually stinky. I will say that I'm not a stinky person,
Neither am
but
I,
yeah,
but it's like, I don't know, it's like my hair. I don't know,
yeah.
because I feel like, and I think that a lot of people, I don't know, because I blow dry my hair. You don't blow dry your hair.
I don't. So I will say this. I'm a bit of a tomboy. I'm very low maintenance. My hair is wash and go. Um I've never had hair that I had to style. in my whole life.
Right.
And
My
so
hair
that
is
makes
not that.
it a little easier for me. And I was raised by hippies, so there's
Mhm.
that too. So,
Yeah.
so there's some of that ethos in my life.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
think that I definitely have. I mean, before Maddie, I was like, or even more so before JD,
yeah,
kind of let it go a little bit after JD. I like have to dry my hair.
yeah,
Um, I don't have curly hair. I
no,
don't have wavy hair, and if
right.
it dries naturally, it does not look nice. I look I look unkempt.
Maybe married. I will
But
have to take your word for it because I've never seen that, but I believe
well,
you.
right, you've never seen it because I don't
Right,
really let it. I
right.
don't. But I think that in my old age, as you said earlier, um, I've definitely like figured out. I feel like I've almost come into my hair more. It's so
Yes.
weird. It's so weird. Like I've come into my hair more, which has
Yeah,
made me a little bit more confident.
yeah.
Which makes it easier to like get the training.
Yeah.
Like yeah, like you
No, it's
said,
true.
you're not a smelly person. I'm not a smelly person either. But I've just
Yeah,
always had like it's like how do I fit my time in for my shower so that I don't look like a
unkept.
disaster,
Right.
unkept.
Which and I would say too is I haven't always had hair this curly. Like it was wavier when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, the style was the pulled back so that your eyebrows are raised ponytail.
Right.
And so it was hairspray and a bump was like world ruining in your hair kind of deal. And that's not the style anymore. Like the
Right.
messy bun is like a thing. I
Right.
started doing that when I was in late high school because I was a lifeguard. So
Right.
but I've also come into my hair after having kids because I
Isn't
was
that
like, "Oh,
crazy? Isn't it
it's
crazy?
nuts." Well, and hormones change your hair. So if ladies don't know that, now you do. Hormones will change your hair. But yeah, I'm like I've embraced and I can't all like I can dry shampoo or dry my but I don't always wash my hair because sometimes it makes it frizzy. So,
Yeah, I think it's like a sensory thing for me. Like, I don't like how my hair feels when it's dirty. Dry
yeah,
shampoo, I have not found a
a
dry
good one.
shampoo that makes my head not feel just disgusting. And then if I
Yeah.
sweat with it, I don't know. So, but anyway, I'm
It
making
can create
excuses.
a no, you're not making excuses, but that's again, this is differences in people, and that's part of
Right.
what
Yeah.
that's part of what we have to navigate, so it's totally
Right.
fine. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Okay. So anyway, that was day 2. Okay.
yeah.
How do we
So
get in day 3?
day 3 is right now during snowboarding season, I do my squats on Thursday, which
Right.
is right after day 2, and it's my heavy squats, but it's low enough volume that I'm not devastated. And also my deadlifts are low enough weight that I'm not devastated doing them
Right.
back to back.
And
And
we keep track of that. You know, like we're
yes,
looking at rating of perceived exertion on
yeah,
your lifts. Like I look at this every week. I look at
yeah.
how are they.
And we've been using that as a descriptor in programming for me for almost the whole time that we've been working together. And
Yeah.
so you know my RPE really well and I know my RPE really
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
sometimes they don't necessarily coincide, but a lot of times they're like, yeah, this is this thing.
Or
Um
sometimes you think that things. No, sometimes you're just like I know. Well, actually, this is really good. You're very good at knowing your body and how it
yeah,
responds to training and how it responds to your schedule, where you'll be
yeah,
like, just give me another week with this rep scheme
yes,
and these loads because like I know it was related to this and
yeah,
this.
yeah,
You know, whether it's some phase in your cycle or lack of
yes,
sleep or
right,
snowboarding or BJJ, like whatever.
yeah.
But where does teaching your kids fall into this?
So in the mornings, I don't train early in the morning. The earliest I'll go into the gym is 11.
Hmm.
And that's usually leaving my husband Alex with the last little bit of school before we both go to jujitsu on Wednesdays.
Hmm.
So I won't go into the gym until noon on Mondays. School is done at that point. Thursdays I'll go in at noon or 1 because I don't have to do anything in the afternoon before the class that I teach. Um, and then Wednesdays, that's the day I do deadlifts before jujitsu. Jujitsu is at noon, so I'll go in and do my deadlifts. Takes me half hour to get them all done, warm up to everything to
And if
breaking the
it
bar
takes
down.
you longer than that, and this is a shout out to anyone, if it takes you longer than that and you are a busy person, then you need to rewrite your program.
Yes. Yes, and it's just one lift, so one lift should not take forever, and
Mhm,
it's low volume sets, so that makes it manageable, and I have a timer, I have little magnet timers that you just tap and you let go off, because
mhm.
otherwise it's really, really too easy to, like, get lost in Instagram or whatever else and take more time, so I have time is precious, so I have to set a timer. And then so day 3 is my heavy squats, and then bench accessories and a heavy bench. So during snowboarding season, I'll squat before I snowboard, and then I'll usually bench the day after I snowboard.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's on a Sunday morning, like it was this last week in my pajamas, but which is before church. But
You
but
got it
usually
in.
usually yeah, and usually that's the way that I do it is I just break it up that one over 2 days. Cuz for me, once my deadlifts are done, I'm like my week is easier. Even though
Right.
I have heavy squats for me, deadlifts are the thing. Deadlifts are the one that I struggle with the most. It took me forever to be able to set my back on them.
They're going
Um
so well right now.
yeah, they're awesome right now. And actually that was something that training through my pregnancy with Phoebe did was finally taught me what a setback felt, and it was something about having a it was like
Big
having
belly.
a big belly, an internal belt is what it
Right.
felt like,
Yeah,
essentially.
you PR'd your
So,
deadlift when you were pregnant.
yeah, right, when I was pregnant, there's a video of it somewhere, a picture of it somewhere on the internet. Um, but
I
yeah,
think
it's
we
like
have it on our website.
you
I don't know.
might.
I might, but I mean, this is just, I actually should have found this before this interview and I should have listened to it. But years ago, right after you had Phoebe,
Mhm.
when
Yeah,
I was, it was 7 years ago, I had
yeah,
wanted to start a podcast and I
yeah,
did my own like makeshift podcast with you and we did it on
yeah,
YouTube.
yep.
I have to find it. I wanted to listen to it before, uh,
I was
before
wearing Phoebe in that one, and I was rocking back and forth the whole time so she wouldn't wake up
you
because she
still
was,
have a
like
rock, which is the
yeah,
actual mom, it's like a thing.
yeah,
One,
yeah.
I literally, like, never stop moving when I'm
Mhm,
standing, I'm just, like,
mhm,
and you're standing, so
mhm.
when I'm standing, I'm rocking, and it's just something
Yeah.
that happens after you have a baby,
Yeah, 'cause, like, even yeah, because it's just something about yeah,
yeah.
something about it.
Okay. So, but one thing that stands out about you is that
Yes.
you never. Oh well. So I'll link that YouTube. I'll find it and I'll link that
Yeah.
YouTube thing.
Okay.
That YouTube interview. It was good. One of the things that stands out about you is that you never miss training. Even if it's not like we talked about, even if it's not
Right.
exactly as written, you get all your main work done. And you were like this before Phoebe. So how do
Yeah.
you approach training while balancing family time and homeschooling? So like, do you feel that, and I think that this might apply more to people with older kids, um, like, you don't need to have someone watch your kids, like, you can go in, or do they come into the gym? Like, how does it work?
Okay, so when they were younger, when they were littler, so I started the garage gym thing when I was pregnant with Phoebe, so probably I was about 6 months pregnant with Phoebe when I started that. Um, and they would come in, I'd have the garage it was a single car garage. I'd have the garage door open, they'd be riding their bikes in the cul-de-sac that we lived in at the time. Um, and Phoebe was internal, so she was inside, so she wasn't a factor at the time. And then after she was born, I would bring her in there with me. She's actually very used to barbell sounds.
Mhm.
Like I could deadlift. I brought her with me actually to my seminar that I had to renew my certification. I brought her with me. She was 6 months old to San Diego when Nicole and Jason had their gym in San Diego. And I was deadlifting. She was in her little chair and I was deadlifting and Wolf
Uh-huh.
was and he was watching her as I was deadlifting and I was doing my sets of 295 or something. And she just would blink really hard when the barbell would come down, but she wasn't shocked by it. She wasn't
Right.
startled by it. She'd been hearing that noise like her whole
Right.
existence.
Yeah.
And so she was very used to that. And while she was still in her little not crawling phase, I could put her in a little bouncy chair and train with her in there with me. And the kids would come in and out. She was born in the winter, so they would go back inside the house.
Mhm.
But when they were little like that, that's what they would do. They weren't really training in there. Sometimes they would do like pull-ups and things. But it was around that time that I bought a 5-pound barbell so that they could do stuff while I was
Mhm.
in there. Um, and I have videos and pictures of my kids lifting and
They
Phoebe
show up
pretending
in your weekly check-in too.
they do. So, and now that my kids are bigger, like my big kids show up and sometimes in my check-ins. My 16-year-old and 14-year-old in our house, they have to train when they turn 13. because they're physical. They do jujitsu, they do judo, they snowboard,
Mhm.
they hike and all that stuff. And I know what strength does for all of those things. I mean, we know what it does.
Mhm.
So that's a requirement. And my son is taken to it like a duck to water, loves it. He'll go to the gym with his dad because my husband likes the social aspect of a public gym.
Right.
I like not having to go anywhere, see anybody I don't want to, and be touched by random people. So
Right.
I do it in
Ugh.
my house.
I
Yeah.
feel I mean, I like the social element. I definitely miss that, but like at the
Yeah.
same time, it's like I guess just I don't want to deal with people.
Yeah. And so my son and my husband will go to the gym that's down the street, and my son will also train here, and he'll also go to the jujitsu gym and train between. He helps coach the little kids class and then takes jujitsu at night. So it's ingrained in him. He's 16, almost 17, and he's been training consistently for at least 2 years.
Mhm.
And then my 14-year-old doesn't love it, but she has to do it if she wants to go snowboarding, and she loves snowboarding.
Mm.
So twice a week. That's all I require of the bigger kids is that they strength train twice a week. And I mean, my husband and I are larger, more muscular people, so they have that genetic
Mhm.
like inclination.
Right.
Um, so my son is still taller than my husband and 200 pounds and solid.
Wow.
And my daughter is a couple inches shorter than me and super strong and solid too. So they've been around it their whole lives.
Mhm.
And my twins keep bugging me to do it. So we'll
How old
get
are
them.
the twins now?
Well,
12. They're
so
getting
they'll
there.
start. Yeah, they're getting there. And Phoebe will come in and she'll do deadlifts with the little bar and things like that every once in a while when she's here. When everyone else is at jujitsu, she doesn't have a class, so she'll be in there with me. But it's not like where my kids are running around while I'm training, because when you train heavy, it's not very safe for little
Right.
kids to be bopping around your space in case something happens. And so when they were littler, they were in there more because they were contained.
Right.
Um, when Now that they're bigger, they're in there to train. And Phoebe has a little chair that I put against the garage door, so you have to sit there while I'm doing my squats or my bench or my deadlift, because I don't want her to get like she'll run around. She's
Yeah,
7,
yeah.
but so that's how that looks with them. Um, but I think maybe it's easier for dads to have kids train in the gym with them than it is for moms, because I can't turn off that part of my brain
Right.
if my kids are in that space with me in a potentially dangerous situation. That's not that lifting is dangerous. It's
Right.
that kids zipping around with heavy
Right.
barbells is dangerous.
Right.
Um, so that's how that looks. And yesterday I was in there doing my forehead supported rows, and my daughter was squatting. I was on the bike doing my conditioning, and she was deadlifting. And it's a pretty cool thing to share with them.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool gift to give them when they're young, because it's something that they can build, and they don't even know what that cash will mean until they're older.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like building up this like skill
Yeah.
that to them is just normal, but they don't realize that it's not.
Right.
And then that'll
Exactly.
pay off.
It should be, but
It should be. I
it
agree,
should
which is
be.
why it's a requirement in our house. But
um okay, so I have a question for you as a
sure.
breastfeeding mother.
Yes.
Um, and I know that lots of people out there breastfeed and, want to manage barbell training uh, along with it. My breastfeeding journey with JD was really tough
Mhm.
because he had ties, I had chronic
Yeah.
clogging, never got mastitis, but had clogs all the time, milk blisters, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And my boobs never felt good.
Yeah.
With the rise in my body temperature, my boobs would be like itchy,
Mhm.
uncomfortable. I
Mhm.
would be like on the verge of a clog or whatever. With Maddie, we got her ties released, and
Yeah.
my boobs feel like boobs,
Yeah.
just like not
Normal.
like they're breastfeeding breasts, but
Right.
they do not feel like as shitty as they did with JD.
Yes. Right.
Um, and I got through like the fourth trimester. Boobs did not feel good then. But then once we had the tie releases and my hormones kind of like settled in and my milk supply was, in a good spot, doesn't really bother me. But what is challenging is the time
Mhm.
that is associated with breastfeeding and pumping.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and also like my children are the kind of kids that need to be in like a dark, quiet place to
Yep.
breastfeed. They get very
Yep.
distracted. I breastfeed them on demand, but
Mhm.
they've made their own schedule. Really, they're like
Right.
very schedule oriented with their with their nursing. Um,
Yeah.
so um, and then, of course, when my kids are at daycare, when Maddie's away from me, I pump. So pumping, when I was pumping 4 times a day, it would be like
Yeah.
2 hours out of my
Yep.
maybe 2 hours out of my day, maybe a little bit
Yeah.
less. Um, but so was breastfeeding, so it was but now it's like now she gets 2 bottles at daycare instead of 4, so I'm pumping maybe like 30 to 45 minutes. So now
Mhm.
I have more time when I'm away
Right.
from my daughter to train. But
Right.
how did you manage breastfeeding Phoebe
Mhm.
and training? Because it's
I
extra,
yeah.
like now you're fitting in more things on top of your already busy schedule.
I think having Phoebe was when I started to modify my training. Like, I wasn't able to get it all done in once, like, I would break it up over the day. That's the
Mhm.
beauty of having, again, that garage gym, is
Right.
that I could go out while she was napping and do a lift,
Okay.
and then or 2, because her naps were pretty consistently like an hour or 2, so I could get
Mhm.
2 or my whole workout done. When she got a little bit bigger, I have pictures of nursing her in between sets. Like, I was pressing and she was losing her mind, so I set a timer, picked her up, nursed her for a minute or 2, popped her off, did my next set, like, did the rest.
Mhm.
Um, she was like, I don't know that I could have done it with the twins, but I with 1 baby, it was well, I will say this, having 1 baby after having twins felt like the easiest thing in the world because I was like, I'm nursing 1 kid, I'm changing 1 diaper, I'm dealing with 1 baby that needs me, so it already
Did you
felt
exclusively breastfeed the twins?
for 4 months.
Wow.
And then I started feeding them and breastfeeding them because they weren't gaining enough weight.
So
So
you were using formula or were you pumping?
I was breastfeeding them and then I was feeding them, I was making them food. I would make purees and stuff.
Oh, at 4 months. Got it. Got
Yeah,
it.
at 4
Yeah.
months. I tried giving them formula. I tried making them formula and my kids will not take a bottle. They just won't. I did doula work when Elias and Adelaide,
Mhm.
the 2 oldest, were babies, and they refused to take my milk from a bottle. They just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So Phoebe was the only one that sort of did, and the only one that I was actually successful pumping with because I was not a successful pumper. I'm not somebody
Mhm.
who makes excess milk. And so it was
I
like,
am.
yeah, and my
Oh my
sisters
goodness.
and my mom, like they're like, yeah, just put a cup under the other side. Well, the one they're nursing on the one side and just gets filled up. And I'm like, are you serious? What? And I like that for me, it just never occurred. I was making just enough for the baby. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so with Phoebe, she would occasionally take the bottle, but she didn't really have to because I did not work anywhere else but at home.
Right.
I was very much at home with my kids at that point. I wasn't working in the gym I'd been working in before, so I didn't have anywhere I had to go. I had 4 people that came to my house to train, and it wasn't every day. I had people that I would let come use my gym space because I knew them and trusted them, and I'd known them from the gym, and they would come and like say hi, knock on my door, and then they would go in, and they had permission to be in there. Um, but it was kind of ended up being perfect for where I needed to be at that point because it did allow me to nurse her, train, nurse her, you know what I mean? And she would
Right.
nurse every couple of hours. So that gave me time. Um, and then I breastfeed for 2 years unless the baby weans themselves. So Adelaide did that, our second did that because I was pregnant with the twins. But um yeah, so I gave her 2 years, and then the twins had 2 years, and at 2 years and by the time they're 2, it's like they're nursing once a day. So it's
Right.
not that they're nursing 85
I
times a
know, I
day.
feel like people think that, like, when they're nursing past 1, they're nursing, like, all the time, especially, like, men. I feel like
Yeah,
men are like, "Oh my god, they're still breastfeeding at 2 years old." No, they're, like, breastfeeding to sleep at, like
yeah. It's
they're
it's
not they're
it's
not
it's
breastfeeding
the
in the middle
nighttime
of a restaurant.
right, no, and it was like the nighttime before bed, like,
Right.
comforting nursing. That's the last
Exactly.
thing to go. It's literally the last thing to go.
Speaking of bed,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Sleep deprivation is real. It's a thing with children, and I've been wearing the Aura ring since, like, a couple months before I got pregnant with Maddie,
Yeah.
and, let me tell you, and you know this because you've been
Yeah.
pregnant 4 times, um, sleep when pregnant is hard to come by.
Yes.
It's very disrupted because of hormones,
Hmm.
and growing baby and, like, what the baby's doing, and
Hmm.
last night Maddie is 10 and a half months old.
Yeah.
Last night, she slept the whole night. My child, my
That
first
is
child,
amazing.
JD slept through the night starting at like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Maddie is the total opposite of him.
Right.
But last and I've been doing like a dream feed because she tended to wake up at like 10:30, 11. So
Hmm.
instead of her getting riled up, I would start going, like just go in and like feed
Yeah.
her, and then she'd
Yeah.
maybe wake up one more time.
Hmm.
Um, but I would be up late because I
Yeah.
was
To
doing
do
that.
that.
Right.
Right.
But last night I was just like too freaking tired. So I went to bed at 10:30 instead of going into her room. And I said,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm just gonna like if she wakes up, she wakes up. And
Yeah.
she never woke up. And neither did my son because he oftentimes comes into our room sometime between like 1 and 4
Yeah.
after he uses the bathroom to tell us he used the bathroom. So I I know. Now let's go back to sleep. But like next time you could go back to bed yourself. So last night was the first night in 18 months that
Is a
I
good night.
slept for 8 hours
Oh,
without waking up.
that sounds
And
amazing.
my aura ring is like, what day is it? What year is it? Is this the right person wearing the
I want
ring?
somebody else if I
Yeah,
don't want to be.
exactly. So I feel like $1,000,000 today, but,
Yeah.
sleep deprivation is a real thing, and you
Yeah.
still never miss training. So talk to us about sleep as a mom, when they're
Yeah.
little, and now I'm sure you sleep. I mean, maybe you don't still
Depending. It just
yeah.
depends.
So
We
talk
had
to us.
we had 6 kids in the house for 10 days, starting, on a Friday and rotated through the 3 youngest. So Phoebe got sick on a Friday, Calliope, the older twin, got sick Monday, and then Reagan Ireland, the younger twin, got sick Tuesday. So 10 days from that Friday, it rotated through.
God
Excuse me.
bless you.
Thank you.
Don't you go getting sick on me.
I'm not. It was just and I have managed. I mean, they're better now. It's like all gone through the house. Like Alex and Adelaide both got fevers, but not the same thing. The twins had like this, and Phoebe had this like gnarly flu. It was nuts. They all lost like, depending on the size of them to start with, like 5 to 7 pounds because they
Oh my
couldn't keep
god.
anything down. They're
Oh
eating
my
yogurt though, but
god.
it was nuts. And so like when they're little like that, I'm like, you need to eat. So I'm like, let's feed you because now that they're better, they actually have appetites. And some days they're like, I'm so hungry. I'm like, cool, food. Um, like, um, so there's still times that sleep gets disrupted because when they were all sick like that, they would rotate coming up to our room because they're like, "Oh, I'm coughing and I don't," and and I'm like, okay, well, we have a couch up in our room actually, like a that turns into a bed,
That's
so
such a smart idea. Mom
that
hack.
we can like put them down on the bed.
Oh my
They're
god, that's
close to
so funny. JD last night, he was like, "I wanna sleep on the couch tonight." We were like, "What?"
but
Because
it's like
John sleeps on the couch when he or I are sick, he'll sleep on
yeah,
the couch.
yep,
Yes, he is a great husband. When I'm
yeah,
sick, he'll sleep on the couch, and when he is sick,
crazy,
he'll sleep on the couch, but JD
yeah,
was like, "Yeah, like, when dad sleeps on the couch." I was like, "That's only when he's sick." And
yeah,
JD didn't come back at us and be like, "Well, I'm sick."
right,
But yeah,
right.
that is, like, such a smart idea, like a couch in your room for when they're sick.
It's it's really nice because because at some point there's no room left in the bed with all the little ones.
Mhm.
So I think we had feet to feet, 2 on the bed at one on the couch at one point sleeping, but
Aw,
it's just being close, they feel better if they're close to us.
right,
So, but when they were little, um, again, I didn't have a job besides taking care of my kids and, the occasional trainee and some remote work when
right,
I first had Phoebe. Not nearly the level I'm at now. Um, because I had been exclusively in person in a gym space up to that point. And so I think I had one remote client for years. And so I could nap. I could train and then nap and then,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And so that was one of the ways that I did it. And part of it is for me and training consistency. I'm incredibly stubborn. Um, and the other part of it is, and this is a question I think that comes later on, but I don't love training. But training is like taking my vitamins and drinking my water and brushing my teeth and feeding myself enough protein and eating enough fiber. It
Mhm.
is a necessity to life. It is a necessity to my mental health. It's a necessity to my daily physical like like release that has to happen.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Um, and I tell this to my clients too. That I have clients that are like, I just don't want to. I don't feel like it and I don't love it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't love it either. I don't think I ever loved it. I loved what it did for me,
Right.
but I'm never like training is so fun. Like
Yeah.
it's something that I do for my future self,
Right.
something that I do for my grandchildren, something that I
Mhm.
do for my kids. And like I get regular blood work, so I know that my body is really healthy and it's something to maintain that. And
Mhm.
so you know, it, and I've trained through some really tough spots in my life, and that has helped my mental health.
Mhm.
So even if I'm sleep deprived, even if it's hard, even if I don't want to, I will get my training in because I know that it's putting money in the bank.
In
It's
those
putting
moments,
yeah,
when you are like, "I don't wanna do this today,"
yeah.
how do you get yourself in there?
I tell myself that if I don't do it today, I'll have to do it tomorrow.
You know what? That's so funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's that's the
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Melissa, who is the other mom that I feel
mhm,
like does it all, that's her answer.
yeah,
That's exactly what she says, and
yeah,
I think that, that's how John feels as well. Like
yeah,
yesterday, he had a shitty workout yesterday.
yeah,
He trained it what was yesterday? Yesterday was Tuesday. He had like
mhm,
it's advisement time
right,
he's a professor, he's
yeah,
advisement. He has a ton of students that he's advising. So he has back-to-back advisement appointments. He's on like committees at his
yeah,
university. They're interviewing new grad assistant. It's like just back-to-back appointments and teaching back to back. He had no time for lunch and he trained. He was probably done at like 3 o'clock yesterday. And he trained
yeah,
at his university instead
yeah,
of training after bedtime
mhm,
because his answer was if I don't train then I have to train tonight. So
right,
if I don't train today, I have to train tomorrow. And I think, I mean, like, I'm not good at that. I'm the opposite. And
yeah,
I'm always a work in progress.
yeah,
I learn from my clients, and I think you said something at the beginning of this episode when we started recording. I don't know if it was before or after we started recording, but you don't want like why are you asking your clients to do something that you don't do yourself? And I think
right,
that's key. um
yeah,
and I oftentimes feel like I've been dealing with a lot between, I mean, and
yeah,
then we talked about this in my last episode with John, like some of the health issues that I'm dealing with that we haven't really talked about publicly.
yeah,
um but uh, but I'm literally coming out on the other side of it.
yeah,
And I feel like who am I to, I'm like when my clients should be telling me what to do that I'm like but you're right. It's like the people who are consistent with training are like, well, if I don't do it today, I have to do it tomorrow, even if I
yeah,
don't want to do it today.
yeah,
Even if I'm not in the mood, if I'm too tired.
yeah,
I don't want to say like do it tired, do it sick. Well, do it if the situation is such that know that you're not going to get hurt or know that you're not going to make yourself worse
right,
when you're overtired, when you are overwhelmed. Do just Nike, just do it.
yeah, just do it. Well,
You
and
gotta.
sometimes I'll go into train and I'll be like, man, I got terrible sleep. This is going to be a really awful session. And sometimes those are my best
I
sessions.
know, I know.
And been doing this long enough that I know that like at first when I first started this, I was like, your sleep affects it so much and your hormones affect it so much. Sure, They do, but at the same time, you there's so much more deep in a person to utilize if we train when we're like that. And that is part of what I love being a coach, is because it's not just the physical benefit of getting stronger. It's the mental fortitude that is forged on those hard training days, on those days where you don't want to, on the days where you maybe fail a lift, on the days where people who are type A and failure is like anathema. They're like, no, I will not fail. But they won't try that rep because they're sure they're going to fail. And me looking at it, like, 10 years into online coaching and seeing people move through space, I'm like, you have like 6 more reps in the tank. Trust me and give it a go. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and but I what I love seeing is I actually have a couple of clients that are online who at first I was like, oh, when they were given to me, I'm like, why are you giving me these people? Because they're very like afraid. And I've had two of them for 3 years now at this point, and who they were and who they are not the same person.
Mhm.
And it's not because of me, it's because they had someone to tell them, "You can do this."
Right.
And then they start believing it, because until somebody tells them that, because I think oftentimes we have a lot of people in society will be like, "Just take a break, don't do it, it's hard." And I've actually had clients whose husbands have been like, "Why are you working that hard? Why do you need to lift that much weight?"
Mm.
And that starts to become insidious, and those clients are no longer with me because they're just like, "Yeah, it's just too hard, and my husband says I don't have to do that." I'm like, "Okay, then your husband is the arbiter of all that you do, but that's fine." But and I've had, men that way too, but usually if it's the outside influence telling you, "You don't need to work that hard," people don't.
Mhm.
So, as a coach, that's more why I love coaching, is because of what that does to your mental strength. Like, that's the piece. That's the first time somebody has a hard workout, that's the piece. That's when the rubber meets the road, and we're like, "This is just too hard. I can't
Mhm.
do it." And I've had to talk people down, I've had to talk people up, and for me, I think about that for myself too. I think I've come so far, and being able to train through all that hard stuff just made me stronger and stronger. And it's funny because I'd been training about 4 years when I had Phoebe. And my mom, who was at the birth of all of my kids, was at Phoebe's birth too. And she goes, "Huh." After I'd had Phoebe, I was like, "What?" I go, "What?" She goes, "You just seemed more peaceful." And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" She goes, "Yeah, usually you're kind of mean when you're in labor." And I was like, "I am?" She goes, "Yeah." And I was like, there was something about having done something voluntarily difficult
Right.
almost every day for 4 consistent years that made labor. First of all, I was like, I'm going to come out the other side of this. I've done this before. But second of all, I was
I
like,
know,
okay,
it ends.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, and at no point in my labor with Phoebe did I feel like it was an unmanageable. Like, there was moments where I literally wanted to climb the wall, but I was like, it's going to end. It's going to end. It's going to
Yeah.
come down. And
Yeah.
that comes from doing a hard thing. And
Right.
that's that mental piece that comes with training, which is one of the reasons why I'm still a coach and why I will continue to be a coach until I can't anymore, is because of what that gives to the people that train. Anyway, off my soapbox.
Um, all right. So, Anna Marie, for
Yeah.
parents who are struggling to find their own training, to find time for their own training, or to kind of get through the new parent phase, whether they're a mom or a dad, um, what advice would you give them?
Let's do it.
Just do
Um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and break it, like we've talked about before, how I break up my training. I think a lot of people have a hard time giving themselves that permission to do that, or that grace,
Right.
because
Yeah.
they think, I have this on one day, I have to get it all done on one
Right.
day. And I actually tell a lot of my clients, and my remote clients are like, "Oh, I can't do this. Can I do this?" I'm like, "You have a home gym. You can go in and squat and then go back in your house and then go in and do chins later. Like,
Right.
just get it done in this week." I just don't I tell them, I'm like, "I don't want you doing multiple workouts in a day."
Right.
So,
Right. Like, and when you say that, it's not like To clarify, you don't want them doing day 1 and day 2 together. You want that
No.
they can do pieces of a
Yes.
day at
Yes.
some point throughout the
Right.
day or over
Right.
2 days, but it don't
Right.
don't shove it all into one
Yeah,
day.
so don't like, I wouldn't do I mean, when you're a novice, when you're new to the lifting, yeah, you'll do your bench, your squat, your
Right.
deadlift, and an accessory maybe all in the same day. Well, when you've been training as long as I have, that's gonna destroy you. So,
Mhm.
like I said, my day 1 is my volume squats and my volume bench, and then I have accessory. Well, I take that little accessory that takes me 15 minutes and I just throw it in front of my conditioning the next day
Right.
because my conditioning is a half an hour. So that's 45 minutes right there, and it saves me a little time on Monday. But I'm not trying to take Monday and Wednesday and smush it into one day
Right.
and try to get that done. It's just breaking up your training days over your week if you need to. And I think as coaches, giving people permission to do that because they wouldn't give it to themselves.
Right.
Because the ones that wrote the program, then they're like, oh, okay. Especially if they have a home gym. If they don't have a home gym, I can totally understand because they go into the gym, they're in there for a certain amount of time, and then they're going to go home. But a lot of people do because of 2020 have a home gym.
Mhm.
And so they do have that opportunity to break it up as needed in that day or over a couple of days. But again, right, don't
Look at
squash
the
it into one day.
little
I
tykes.
see your little tykes, and I was like,
I love that the little tykes just popped up. Um, and I mean, speaking about people who don't have a home gym,
yeah,
um, I think one thing that I find with people, not even just parents, but people who are struggling just to get their training in,
yeah,
with whatever responsibilities they have or whatever
right,
motivation that they're dealing with. I feel like sometimes if we're doing less days, it's hard to build a routine. So sometimes I
yes,
have people do short workouts Monday through Friday so that their Monday through Friday looks the same and they just press go and they go through the same routine. They wake up, they eat breakfast, they go to the gym, they come home, they shower, they go to work. Something like that, right?
yep,
Well, and so that it's there's not this guessing. And I think we talk about this with nutrition,
mhm,
or John talks about it. Like everything is exactly the same. John eats the same
right,
thing every day.
right,
When you develop that habit or that
mhm,
routine, it's just
mhm,
I feel like a lot easier.
yeah,
Um, so if you don't have a home gym, then
yeah,
maybe, just spa- I mean, I shouldn't use the word just. I had a client years ago who was like, I don't like that word just because it's not just for
yeah,
someone. It could be
right.
like a big deal for
It could be
someone.
everything for somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I actually had that same thing too. Is I'll find myself saying just, and I'm like, it's really not just. It's just it's that it's this thing. It's not
Right.
just do that. It's and that whole just to do it. So I will say what I do with busy parents or people that have a limited time to train, whether it's in their home gym or at a regular gym, is a Monday through a Friday
Yeah.
or a 4 day that it's like two lifts, two lifts, two lifts. So then in the week they only have so much time in that week. They're still squatting twice. They're
Mhm.
still benching and pressing
Mhm.
3 to 4 times, and
Mhm.
they're going to deadlift an accessory in there once or twice.
And
And,
what I
and
like about having an upper and lower in the same session is you can superset them.
that's what I do on my Mondays with my
Yeah.
squats and my bench is that's why I can get it done in 45 minutes.
Mhm.
And so um and that kind of frees them up. That it takes a little bit of the mental load away
Mhm.
when they're like, "Oh, I have this third thing to do." When you have two things to do,
Yes, yes, the mental load.
manageable. 3 things seems unmanageable. You can do 2.
Yeah, and
And so
I
it's
mean, we
that
could apply that if 2 seems unmanageable, then do 1,
right,
make it
right,
make sense for you. Um,
right.
so finally, where can people find you if they wanna connect with you and follow your lifting journey and learn more
Okay.
about working with you if they wanna work with you?
I, have an Instagram, am_strength. You can always message me there. I contract with a couple different companies. Um, and so you can find me through there. Barbell Logic is one of them. Just look me up. I'm on their site. Um, but you can also email me. My email, which is my work email, is am.strength.ss for starting strength at gmail.com. So those are the way I don't have a website. I'm not that savvy.
Mm.
I just and I don't need people to like randomly hit me up
Right.
on a website. So Instagram is a great way to get a hold of me, or email is a great way to get a hold of me. And I check my email every single day, and I check my Instagram every single day. So
Yes, very responsive as well.
yes.
Unlike me, you just 5 to 7 business days. I'm
Hey,
sorry.
if I had a business like you, I would do the same thing. And I just
It's
it's just easier this way for me.
it's more about for me, it's balancing all the different elements of my business plus
Right.
babies, plus
Yeah.
strength training. Ugh, I don't know. I'm working on it. I am a work in progress, folks. Um, I
The
just
thing is,
love
it's like you look at me now and you're like, oh yeah, but like this was a gradual adaptation. Like we said at the beginning, like I had one kid and then I had two. I didn't have
right,
five kids at once
right.
and like have to figure it all out. Like and then I'm growing and maturing as that's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
26 when I had my first kid. I'm 35 when I had my last. That's 9 years. That's a lot of change. It's a lot of growing that happens
You
there.
grew
So
into your mom like we grew
I
into
did
our
do it.
hair.
Exactly. And so and the other thing is the side, like the parting note I would say is parents have to give themselves grace because sometimes people will pile it on themselves and then they'll just feel so guilty and so down that they don't go in and train because A, B, C, and D.
Right.
You have
Yep.
to give yourself grace. You just take care of yourselves first. It's putting on the oxygen mask on the airplane.
Yep.
It's your mental health, your physical health are just as important as everything else. In fact, those things will support everything else that you do. So I'm not like an anomaly. I may
Right.
seem like one, but this is just I've developed over time.
Yep. All
Yeah.
right, my dear, thank you so much for being here on the podcast with us. I
Thanks for
enjoy
having me.
sharing your story. You're just such an inspiration. Every week, I'm like always inspired by you, and I'm always impressed and all that good stuff.
Thank
If you're listening to this podcast up until this point, you can join us in our Facebook group, The Secret Society of Barbell Mastery. We do form checks in there on a weekly basis. We do Q&A sessions. We post about what's happening at PRS, all that good stuff. You can sign up for our newsletter somewhere in here, and we have a ton of freebies on our website, and I'll link those. Free programs, free ebooks, all that good stuff, and I will link those in the show notes. And that's it, guys. Bye for now, and we will see you on the next episode.